Well, hello there, my friends. How are you? I'm David Stevens. Welcome to my world. Welcome to Ordinary Guys Bourbon. Ordinary Guys Bourbon, yeah, from coast to coast, ocean to ocean, as well as border to border. Just some ordinary guys sipping on some bourbon, talking about life, hopes, ambitions, maybe a dream or two along the way. Let's get going. Our guest today on Ordinary Guys Bourbon, a person who's anything but ordinary, my very special guest, my good friend, Vince Falzetta.
Hello, Dave. Thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here today. I'm really excited to do the bourbon tasting with you here on this show. We've known each other for about 13 years now, and you have been the guy that really has introduced me to the joys of bourbon.
So yeah, when you and I met, I think both of us had the same amount of time in manufacturing at that point, about 15 years each.
Yeah, now we're pushing 30.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not saying that bourbon or spirits necessarily help the process, but they don't hurt.
I think it might help.
Yeah. You've got a wonderful family. I've been blessed to meet your wife, Tina. You and Tina have been married for 30?
A very long time, 32 years.
She's an angel. And you've got two children.
My daughter, Allie, and my son, Vince.
And Allie is expectant.
She is.
How exciting is that?
Very exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
First grandkid.
And you know, all this stuff, your family has spread out across the United States, which makes it challenging, I think, in this stage of life for us. But what makes things better
Is bourbon.
is bourbon. So today's offering we're going to have is Blanton's, and you and I have had many bottles of Blanton's together, often in celebration. It's really a bottle that I think it's a unique bottle. It's a unique offering. It's something that is a good gift. It's a good congratulatory item. The story, though, of Blanton's is rich. The history is rich. Colonel Albert Bacon Blanton, was born in 1881 in a farm right next to the distillery that became Buffalo Trace, which is who distills this product. At the time, it was called OFC Distillery, so my research tells me, and that stood for Old Fire and Copper. That's exciting. He started working there when he was 16 years old, and he worked there for 55 years. He was the master distiller there. In the 80s, the master distiller at the time, Elmer T. Lee, was tasked with creating a drink to honor or commemorate Colonel Blanton, and that's where this offering came from.
Very nice.
This bourbon, this was the first single barrel bourbon that was released to the public. So in the early 80s, bourbon was not having a great time. The average bottle of bourbon cost between $7 and $13, and you know, there were stories about how Colonel Blanton used to, when he had dignitaries or guests, he'd go back to Warehouse H and select a specific barrel from what he called honey barrels, and because of the construction of the rick houses where they're stored, it aged just in a certain way, and he thought they were the best. And so Elmer T. Lee came out with this in 1984. That was when this was offered, and it was a resurgence of bourbon, of the industry. This, along with Elijah Craig, had an offering at the same time. Booker's from Jim Beam had an offering at the same time. But it was really Blanton's and Booker's and Elijah Craig that reintroduced the world to a premium spirit and a premium bourbon, a premium product like this.
Very nice.
So this is our very first episode ever, and I think it's important to spend a minute and explain what our scoring system is with more detail. There are 4 categories, as I mentioned before. The first one is heritage, and the maximum score is 20 on heritage, 0 to 20. The second score is taste and drinkability, which is an important category. The maximum score there is 40. The third category is affordability, and it's a dangerous one, especially with this offering. The maximum score there is 30. And then last, because it's important, is the design. The maximum score on design is 10.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Don't mind at all.
What is the retail on this bottle?
So that's a great thing. When this bottle came out in 1984, the retail was $35. Retail MSRP, I think, for Blanton's right now is $65. Good luck finding it for $65.
Correct.
Right? I think most places, if you can find it, will sell it for $200. or 200, as you'd say. There are some places, different liquor stores have different promotions. There's a liquor store locally in central Illinois where they've had bottles of this before, and you can buy it at like $110, but then you have to buy $110 of other bourbon. Not a problem. But again, MSRP is $65 for this, but I don't think I've seen a bottle of blends for $65 in 10 years.
Yeah, just recently I found a bottle of this in Michigan for $120.
God's country.
And in central Illinois, the cheapest I found was $200. They'll sit on the shelf for $200, and they'll tell you can get it for $150 at other stores, but it's not there.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the scoring system. What we do as far as the sampling is we have a controlled sample, which is neat, right? And then we have the second sample, which is however you normally prepare and drink bourbon. Do you want to put some rock and rye in there? You can. That's all up to you. I think
Rock and rye is a good drink. But
I think less of
it's
you.
separate from bourbon.
I would think less.
Separate
of you.
from bourbon.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever mixed bourbon and rock and rye.
No, I haven't.
Even like Benchmark or like Jim Beam White.
I've never had bourbon in rock and rye.
My first drink that I ever had as an adult, stretching that adult term a little bit, was Absolute Vodka and Dr. Smooth Secret Recipe Soda, which was from like the Piggly Wiggly or something like that down south. It was a black can. It was Dr. Pepper with like twice the sugar and half the carbonation, if you can imagine such a thing.
Vodka would be a completely different episode.
We don't do vodka.
No, we don't.
Ever.
Okay.
No.
Not in this show.
In all of our episodes, all one of them.
Isn't your heritage Polish?
It is. It is.
The transition from vodka to...
This is the official spirit of America. Right? I think in 1964, the Congress passed a law saying that bourbon is the official spirit of the United States. I might be wrong with that, but I couldn't say I made that up completely. That would be better.
Let's follow the law.
Yeah, we'll follow the law.
On this.
So that's how this is set up, right? So there's the 4 categories for tasting, but controlled, and then however you normally drink it.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll fill out our scorecard and see where we landed.
Sounds great.
Cheers to you, Vincent.
Cheers to you. Just want to drink this?
As many as you want. Your grading might be a little looser after a few.
I'm obviously not trying to change your scoring method, but I felt like the history of this bourbon was quite high.
And we'll get into the scoring in a moment. Just go ahead and fill out your card first.
Okay.
Then you have to do the math as well.
It's nice that you took your readers. I should have took mine. He doesn't want to talk about how we're scoring this, but the affordability seems to be a bit of a twist.
We will in a minute.
Okay.
We will in a minute. No, I forgot what I was doing with the math. I'm good with the scoring.
Okay.
You all set?
I got my score and I haven't totaled it up yet.
So I'll give you a couple minutes there. Master electrician time.
What do you have?
Well, let's start with Heritage. So Heritage, we talked a little bit about the history of Blanton's. What do you have for the Heritage score? Maximum 20.
I scored a 19.
19, solid score. Very close. I had it in 18. Any reason why? Anything you want to highlight?
I like the shape of the. Oh, I'm sorry. That's on design.
Yeah.
I like the history. I also like that it was the first single batch in the 80s, and I also like that it resurrected the interest in bourbon in the 80s.
I'll tell you something I didn't share, because I didn't really spend enough time doing the research. So Colonel Blanton, born in 1881, right? He started working at the distillery when he was 16. There's a story there about Colonel E.H. Taylor was the owner of the distillery at the time, who has his own namesake bottle as well. And he fell on some financial hard times. And do you want me to give you a minute? Do you take care of it?
I got it.
Okay. He fell on some hard times, and George T. Stagg, who also has a bourbon for himself, right? He was like a bourbon salesman, and he stepped in and had this like shady, seemingly shady deal that purchased the distillery right out from underneath Colonel Taylor, right? And then Blanton continued to work there. The history goes deep with these weird, as a lot of these, like Jim Beam's the same way, right? These twists and turns of the lineage of the family. I agree. Strong score. You had a 19. I had an 18. Taste and drinkability, maximum 40.
I scored a 36.
We're very close. I got a 35. So maybe that extra hit of the controlled sample.
Yeah, I think maybe
gave it an extra point.
Maybe the neat little extra hit of the neat.
It's a smooth, good tasting bourbon.
It is.
But let's go to the next one, affordability, which is I think where this product could be tripped up a little bit.
Yeah, I was jumping in a little bit early. I scored it low because it's hard to find retail value. I scored it at 8.
8. I had it at 10. So real close. You know, like a lot of bourbons, Elmer T. Lee is a great product as well. And maybe we'll cover that on a future episode. They're real hard to find, and the markup is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Would you buy this as a gift for a colleague? Maybe, I don't know, but you know, I think you maybe have. But
yeah.
Would you buy this for an everyday drinker?
If someone that doesn't know about bourbon, I probably wouldn't buy this for because they would Google it and think I spent $65 on the bottle. I spent quite a bit more.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a shame though. It's a shame that you used to be on the shelf every single liquor store, $65, and you could walk out with 5 of them, right? In fact, when I was collecting the Blanton stoppers, I think I picked up like 4 bottles on one day. I went to work and I explained my little challenge that I was working on to a tinsmith at the time, and the next day she came in with the 3 bottles I was missing, and she's like, "Yeah, here you go." I was like, "Oh, let me pay you," and she's like, "You're good," you know, because it was $60 a bottle, and it wasn't a big deal. Now, if you could find them, $200.
Yeah, even in the past 5 years, I noticed the increase in scarcity.
Yeah, there are I think 3 different variants that are sold in the U.S. There's the gold, right? And I think you know some of that. I've had a sample of gold over at Sean's house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have one that's barreled at like barrel strength. I think in Japan they have like a red label and a blue label.
Oh, nice.
I don't live in Japan, so we'll just skip that. Design.
I started getting this earlier, but I actually like the design. I like the shape. I like the horse with the jockey and the different letters and collecting, like you said. I scored a 9.
So just before I tell you my score, the stopper, it's always had a horse on it since 1984. It wasn't until 1989 or 1999, one of the two, doesn't really matter, when Sazerac bought the company, that they came up with this whole 8 different horses with the different stages of him winning. And the last, the S, the Blantons, is with the jockey with his hand like triumphantly fist in the air. You give it a what? A 9?
I gave it a 9.
I gave it an 8. So your total was?
I believe 72.
72? I got a 71. We're pretty close. It's a good bourbon. It's a great bourbon. It's a great bourbon. That affordability is what really hurts it.
And also finding it.
And finding it.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until next time, Ordinary Guys Bourbon.